What is going on, everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic day and welcome to Fitment Industries Garage. I'm Gels from Fitment Industries, and today we have another episode of What Wheels Fit to bring to you guys. And on today's episode, we're going to be covering the much requested BMW E46. Before we go ahead and jump right into the video, please, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And of course, once you know what wheels are gonna fit on your E46 or what you wanna go with, don't forget who helped you out and stop on over at fitmentindustries.com. Check out all the wheel, tire, and suspension options that we have for E46s, E36s, E30s, any car, we got it. The BMW E46 is a popular generation of the 3 Series BMW for multiple reasons, but probably the biggest reason is that they are very easy to pick up and can be done so for pretty dang cheap. And they are a great bang for your buck car. With that, people like to modify them as well, so here we are trying to figure out what wheels can actually fit on your E46. So what we're gonna do is take a look at the fitment gallery over at fitmentindustries.com and check out some of the E46 examples that are sitting in there right now and dive into detail as far as what they are running for wheels, tires, and suspension, and compare them to one another, regarding their fitment, what kind of modifications are needed, if there's any fender rolling or trimming needed to get the wheels to fit, and all that sort of stuff, so you know exactly what you're getting into right out of the gate. First things first, the recommended fitment range for the E46 gives us the diameters of 16 to 20 inches, widths from 7 to 9 inches, and an offset landing anywhere between plus 20 and plus 43. And of course, that bolt pattern we're looking at is gonna be a 5x120. So what we're gonna do is start off with some cars that are running a pretty modest setup, I guess you could say, for those who are looking for some aftermarket wheels, change up look at their car a little bit, but don't wanna have to worry about things like fender rolling or rubbing issues or like scraping everywhere they go because they're just slammed on their nuts. And then what we'll do is, as we go on, get more and more aggressive with the fitment. All that being said, let's get into the first car of the day. It's gonna be this 2001 325i with some Racing Dynamics RGP wheels. For the size, we're looking at some 17x8s with a plus 38 offset all around. For tires, these are wrapped in some Black Lion Champion tires with a size of 225/45 and then sitting on some Megan Racing lowering springs. With this setup, we get a little drop in ride height with help from those Megan springs, and this is a slightly tucked fitment with the 17x8 plus 38s. So definitely no worries about rubbing or clearance issues with this setup. Up next, we have another 2001, this time a 325 Ci with some avant-garde M359s. Now, here we have a staggered setup and are looking at some 18x8.5 plus 35s in the front and an 18x9.5 plus 45 in the rear. These have some Federal Evolution ST1 tires with a size of 215/40 and 245/35, and then sitting on some BC Racing coilovers. So if we compare that to the last car, we are bumping up that diameter up to an 18-inch from a 17-inch and switching over to a staggered setup versus a square setup, meaning that you're gonna have, wider wheel in the rear than considered to the front. As far as the type of fitment we have here, a pretty nearly flush fitment, I would say, with the 8.5 plus 35 and almost more of a tuck with the 9.5 plus 45 in the rear. I would think that you could get away with maybe a plus 40, if not a plus 35 in the rear if you wanted to get, a flush fitment on both front and rear. But I'm sure we'll see that in a second. Final note on this car is that there still is no fender rolling or trimming needed yet to get everything to fit. Up next, we have another 2001 with some avant-gardes again, this time with a 330i with some M240s. Now these are an 18x9.5 plus 30 offset all around square setup paired with some Continental DWS tires, 245/35 for the size, and then sitting on some Fortune Auto coilovers. So a couple notes on this car. We have a slight rub at full turn and the inner rear quarter lip is ground down to make sure that there's no issues back there. It's actually a pretty common thing with these E46s, especially when you get up into these wider, more aggressive setups, that tab is gonna have to trim. Pretty flush setup all around with this example, and I think it looks pretty damn good. Now, I promise there's just one more from 2001, and here we have a 330i with some rotiform RSEs. 18x9.5 plus 25 offset, square setup again, so pretty much taking the last car and giving it 5 millimeters more offset, giving us a very flush fitment, almost even to a poke fitment in the front a little bit. For the tires, we have a Nitto Neogens 225/40 for the size and sitting on some BC Racing coilovers yet again. Fenders are rolled just like the last car. The inner lip wheel well is cut and then rolled to match the rest of the lip. So like I said, pretty common thing with these cars. When you get more aggressive, you're gonna have to mess with that rear quarter panel just a little bit, but very flush fitment with these RCs on this car. I told you we would move away from the year 2001 and I wasn't lying. Here we have a 2003 325 Ci sitting on some Niche Vosso wheels with a staggered size of 19x8.5 plus 40 in the front and a 19x9.5 plus 40 in the rear. So a true 1-inch staggered setup on this car. For the tires, we got some Lexani LX20s, 225/30 and a 255/30 for the tire size, and then sitting on some Raceland coilovers for the suspension choice. Fenders are rolled, but no mention of having to trim the rear quarter panels. Overall, not as aggressive of a setup as we've looked at with the last two, but we were getting our first look at some 19-inch wheels on these cars, and it does seem to be working really good. Pretty functional setup, I would say. Looks really nice. Cruising along, we get to a 2005 325 Ci on some OZ Racing Futuras, 18 by 9.5 plus 16 up front and 18 by 10.5 plus 9 in the rear. So getting a lot more specific with our wheel specs here. Nankang NS20 tires, 215/35 and 225/35, giving us a good amount of stretch on those wheels, and then sitting on some KW suspension coilovers. As you can see, we have a really nice static fender to lip setup pretty much here, with help from those rolled fenders, some front camber plates, and aftermarket rear control arms to help dial in that fitment to where it needs to be. And then our last car of the day we are going to go over is the first and only example on air suspension with this 2001 325 Ci. So I lied, there was one more from 2001, I'm sorry. But here we have some BBS RSs on this car, 18 by 9.5 with a 0 offset in the front and an 18 by 10.5 with a +9 offset in the rear. Wrapped in some Achilles tires, 215/35 and 225/35, and then sitting on some Airlift Performance air suspension to get it where it sits. So some wide aggressive wheels sitting aired out, fenders rolled and pulled to make some room for when it does do that. All sort of good stuff. There you have it. So hopefully this helped you guys out in your journey to find some wheels, tires, or suspension for your BMW E46. And of course, if you still have questions or maybe didn't see something that you really liked, hop on over to fitmentindustries.com, check out the gallery, punch in your year, make, and model, and check them out for yourselves. There's like literally hundreds of BMW, actually thousands. There's thousands of BMWs in the gallery right now. Go check it out for yourself. Other than that, wheels, tires, suspension, fitmentindustries.com. That's about it. Have a good day. Peace.